Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Financial Happy Hour podcast, where we make money talk simple, honest, and powerful. So, today, what we're going to do is we're diving deep into something that could truly redefine how you think about money, taxes, retirement, and control. Keyword control. And that's something called the financial shield. Today, what we're going to do, we're going to explore how this strategy aligns with the new rules of money and why sticking to old school advice, like relying solely on 401ks, might be doing more harm than good. Now, our special guest today is John Marques. He's a financial expert with over 40 years in the financial services industry, and he is the co creator of the Financial Shield. What John's going to do today is he's going to help us unpack how this strategy protects your income, how it decentralizes traditional banking, and how it helps use your money the way the wealthy do, which is by leveraging, not by losing. So, the bottom line here is this episode is for anyone who wants to avoid unnecessary taxes, protect themselves from market volatility, and finally understands how to build true financial freedom by using strategies banks use themselves. So, let's get into it. John, welcome.
Yes, glad to be back. We had a show a few months ago.
Yes, we did. Well, bigger and badder than ever before. You got to raise the bar, you don't lower it. And that's what we plan on doing today. So, John, before we do get started, we must do our traditional podcast salute. I ran down to Benny's down the street and I got me a nice Long Island tea today, the mini version. So that way I can still keep my mind at bay. So, here's to another successful podcast. May our viewers who are watching this live and on the replay get a lot of value from today's show. Cheers, sir.
Cheers. Mine's a fruit punch, so I'm a little light.
Fruit punch for a fruity guy. Hey, before we get started, John, we've got a lot to unpack, and an hour is not enough time to uncover everything that I probably got for you. So, if you could just be brief, but give us a little bit of background on yourself, if you could.
Well, I've been in the industry 40 years, and I've been on many sides of the fence here. When I say many sides, I came in 1985, and I got a securities license immediately. Ran for a couple of marketing companies, and by 2012, I decided to go in a different direction. And actually, 2010, I let my securities license go because it seemed to be a big hassle to just keep it and utilizing it, especially when I wanted to offer safe and secure stuff. And so left the securities license alone. Learned a lot in the late 90s about IULs and cash value life insurance, and how insurance was not a commodity, how it could be used as leverage, and one of the best places to put money that you can do. And so I've been a proponent of this for many years. Cash value, properly structured insurance contracts. Been marketing, teaching agents how to properly design these things, and ran across the pandemic. The pandemic changed everything, and a different way of doing business. We could no longer meet people in person. How could we have an effective model? I created a brochure or a concept called the New Rules of Money, and handed it to a company that had 27,000 agents. They designed the brochure, and right after the pandemic, I left that company and decided to take, like LeBron James says, take my talent somewhere else, and found some individuals that liked the idea. And we recently started a crusade called the Financial Shield around the country. We have a website called the financialshield.vip that's in its beginning stages, and it's about teaching people about the three things we do
Hold that thought.
every day.
Hold that thought. Or that's going to be the next question after this one. John, you call yourself, correct me if I'm wrong, as a financial strategist. Is that correct? What
I
title?
would call that would be financial strategist, financial consultant.
Strategist consultant. What is the difference between that and a traditional financial advisor or a financial planner?
Well, I'm not sure I could give you the answer to that. I just know in my own thought process is that I learned a concept about something called the blue ocean and, you know, being different. And with the traditional, I've been viewing a downgrade in the financial services industry because so many people are pushing commodities. And just like if you don't have the right foundation on your house and the earth shakes, your house falls down.
Correct.
And so I found a different way to create the foundation, more about living than dying.
Okay. So now let me piggyback off of that. What exactly is the financial shield, and how did you come up with this concept?
Well, I came at it was almost by accident. So the first thing was I came up with the concept of the new rules of money and using what I called new rules, comparing it to technology revolutions. So for example, when you look at Uber disrupted the taxi industry and Netflix has disrupted the entertainment industry and so on and so on. Amazon has disrupted the retail industry. And so I wanted something that would disrupt the industry a little bit. So one of the things that I found by being involved in the marketplace was that it was all about selling life insurance. And in the mid 2000s, I was introduced to a concept called living benefits. And what was living benefits? It was a life insurance policy that paid whether you lived or died. So I started on a crusade after 2006, and I would try not to, if I was to market a life insurance policy, it would pay whether they live or die. The majority of people in this country that have been sold the commodity of a life insurance policy have been sold a product that pays only if they die. It's been commoditized. Now, I found out there's a 5 times greater chance of you getting sick before you die.
Right.
So if everybody's pushing something that covers whether you die, and no one's pushing something that covers you whether you live or die, and you have a 5 times greater chance of getting sick
Doesn't make sense.
than dying, didn't make any sense to me.
Nope.
The other thing is we used to use flip phones 22 years ago, and they were limited. Today, we're using the smartphone, and you can do all these different things on a smartphone. Well, if we're still using the old rules of the way we look at finances, you know, when we look at the traditional methodologies of people that have 401ks, a 401k is not bad. I'd rather have a 401k with $1 million in it than not have anything at all in it. So it's not that it's bad. It's just what we haven't learned is what's being taught isn't mixing well with what really is happening. Right. So for example, when you look at life insurance, most people look at it as a cost, a debit in case you die. Well, we were looking at it, we got to look at it in case you live. We plan on living. So the way we do business, one of the rules is we first look at how many years we think people are going to live. So we look at the cup half full. So I look at it that if you're 45 years old, we believe in our model that you can make it to 100.
Right. Another 55 years to live.
55 years to live. Mm-hmm. Now, but the other thing that started being very apparent is that something possibly could happen to you on a multiple stage platform over the next 55 years.
100%.
So, and every individual doesn't know what that's going to be. You don't know if you're going to need long-term care. You don't know if you're going to get into an auto accident, break 30 bones in your body, be in traction, and have a 1.5 year recovery time. You don't know if you're going to get cancer. You don't know if you're going to get a heart attack. You may get a heart attack and need long-term care. We do know one thing's for certain: you will die. Everyone we talk to wants tax-free income. So here's the thing I finally learned. If you want the simplest form of the shield is that there's not one single financial product that can give you tax-free income, pay you if you die, pay you if you have a cancer, pay if you get in an auto accident, provide long-term care protection. They all can do it, but what happens if you own a plan, and even if you have the right plan, the best plan, let's say you have an IUL with living benefits and you get sick and then you utilize those benefits, what happens to the policy if you utilize the benefits? It's gone. So then you don't have tax-free income anymore. You don't have life insurance anymore. Imagine being 50, exercising your policy, and you live another 30 years and then you die or you need long-term care. You only get to use it once or twice. So the concept of the shield is to create a shield around you and give you options and solutions in case the things in life, the what ifs in life happen to you. If nothing happens to you, you got tax-free income till the day you die. But if you develop cancer, or you have a short-term 90-day where you can't perform 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living, and you need access to cash, or you can't go to work for a year, where's the money's going to be? So the number one question is, what is the greatest asset that we possess as humans in the United States of America? The greatest financial asset.
So you got to let me ask some of my questions here, John. You're covering all of it right here, but I love it. So I want to back up just a little bit here, because the analogy that you use with a flip phone versus a smartphone is absolutely brilliant. And here's why. Because you can still buy a flip phone today. As I understand, they still sell those basic flip phone models out there on the market. So the question is, for the normal person like you and I, why would we buy a flip phone when we have a smartphone that is infinite in terms of all the different things and the tools that you have access to, versus a flip phone that you can basically only make phone calls and maybe take a picture or something like that, but you can't really do much more. Same thing with life insurance. Why are people still buying life insurance policies that only pay when you die? That is way less likely to happen versus getting a policy. We're just talking life insurance here, no matter what kind of life insurance it is, versus one that is going to most likely use while you're alive at some point in time. You're 5 times more greater to use a policy that has living benefits versus one that doesn't, right? So you're
lack of
still going out there
education.
buying the flip phones of life insurance till this day.
Lack of education.
Correct.
What you don't know is what you don't know, but what you don't know financially can hurt you. And so you have the agendas, you have the people, and this is what I love about what we're doing, Rusty. What I really love about what we're doing, we have a nationwide movement right now, and we're just getting started. But what I love about what we do the most is the fact that we are educating people that there's no insurance policy that is bad. Okay, when I say design is everything, but what I'm saying is the industry, there are people that sell whole life and say you shouldn't buy anything but whole life. There are people out there that say buy term insurance and invest the difference, and you shouldn't buy any whole life. There's index universal life people saying whole life is bad. Whole life people saying index universal life is bad. So they're competing against each other. They're swimming in a pool with a bunch of sharks. And again, the consumer is not the beneficiary of this fight that's going on in the industry amongst philosophies. If the policy was not good, the regulators wouldn't allow us to sell it. If a whole life policy was bad, we wouldn't be able to sell it. If an index universal life policy was bad, we wouldn't be able to sell it. So I let them all kill each other, and we fight for the consumer, because you know what? The only policy that makes sense is one that pays whether you live or die. And I don't care which policy it is, they all have a purpose. Right. and a place in this industry, and it's the knowledge. So we lack the knowledge. The other thing is that everybody that's in sales, no matter what you're selling, are you selling something because you need to make a commission to feed your family? Or are you selling something, are you giving people choices in something that if you give people what they want, not what they need, give people what they want. See, when you're a salesman, you sell people what you think they need. If they don't want what you have, you become pushy and you don't make money. I give people what they want. And the analogy is we call this happy hour, but when you go to a restaurant, what happens? You get a menu and you choose what you want to eat. Nobody sells you on eating. Nobody sells you on what you have to get off the menu. Our philosophy is to offer the menu and let people choose to build the shield or the foundation that whether they live too long, die too soon, or get sick, and they have a 5 times greater chance of getting sick, that they have multiple options over the next 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, 80 years, whatever the amount of the time is. And no one is prepared. No one knows that their income is their greatest asset, financial asset. No one knows it.
I think you've already answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And repetition is not necessarily a bad thing either. You have served a countless amount of people, families, and businesses throughout the course of your career. So when you look back on your 40 plus year career, you think of all the financial portfolios that you reviewed and analyzed before presenting a solution. What is the common denominator, the biggest risk you see in most people's financial portfolios today? And you might have already answered that. It could be taxes, it could be risk, it could be living, but it could be anything. But what's your answer to that question?
Well, like I said, putting the foundation in place through this process of the new rules and understanding what I realized that people don't understand what tax diversification is. You know, and I asked the company, what is tax diversification? What does that mean to you? And they really couldn't answer me. And it's really simple. You have accounts that are taxable and you have accounts that are tax-free.
Tax free. That's right.
The majority of the people in the country are all one-sided. Everything they do is going to be taxable. They
Correct.
have very little tax-free strategies. So what we need is we need to talk about what's going to happen in the future. And most people believe taxes are going to go up. And there's a lot of reasons why. And we're not here to talk about all the reasons why taxes are going to go up, but they're going to go up. So when you're saving money and you're delaying the tax to let the government control what the tax rate's going to be, that's probably not a good thing to do. But there's certain things that we can't change. If you've already got $1 million in tax deferred accounts, you're not going to be able to get out of this without the fire. You're going to have to move some money, transfer some money, conversions and things to get tax-free income. But the whole process is to understand first, let everybody in this country understand that we need to be more tax diversified. We need to have more accounts that are tax-free, and we will have accounts that are taxable. And the majority of the country is all taxable. So that's number one. The second thing is we need to teach people about asset diversification. And life insurance is not considered an asset class to the normal human being.
Right.
So once we realize that life insurance is a real viable asset class, and we tell people, and for those of you that have a chance to watch the show here or the podcast, I mean, we want you to write down the acronym BOLI, BOLI and COLI, and it's called BOLI and COLI, and you can go on the GPS chat, you can do AI, Google this stuff, and you're going to understand there's billions of dollars, and the majority of all banks are investing in life insurance for a reason.
Correct. We're going to, in time permitting, we're definitely going to touch base on that, the whole BOLI and COLI.
And then,
I want to illustrate there.
And then here's the other thing. The other thing is I read a book called The Power of Zero by David McKnight. And then there's a gentleman named Doug Andrews out there that pushes IULs, and he's been an industry giant for 50 years and a lot of education. And so I've mentored with some of these folks. And I looked at what everybody was doing. I took a piece of what everything is doing, and then I read a book called The Retirement Shield. And then I hooked up with a couple of guys that were police officers, which is one of our marketing companies called Friends and Finances. And they had a badge and a shield. I read the financial shield. I looked at everything. Not the financial shield, the retirement shield. And I looked at every book I've ever read and everybody that I came up with. And I looked at it, I go, we need to provide a financial shield. So the biggest thing was missing out of the portfolio is this: the protection of the income.
Right.
Most people spend more money on car insurance than protecting their income. Now, most people, when we talk about income, they talk about disability and some of the other stuff. I'm talking about full-fledged. If you get sick and you need to go to Germany for an experimental surgery to save your life, and you need $300,000 or $400,000, you don't have the money to do that because you have a policy that pays only if you die.
Right.
So it's structuring this to make sure that you have options and solutions, as I mentioned earlier, to your income. Your income is your greatest financial asset. Take away your income, and you have no income. Ask any average American. Your income is gone for the next 14 months. You got medical bills piling up. You're sick, and you're so stressed out that it's going to kill you because you don't have time to work on getting better. And all you need is the financial peace of mind to be able to get the care you want. People shouldn't die because of money. And that's what's happening. People are dying because of money. The number one vehicle in this country is GoFundMe. So let's take care, let's step up to the plate. If you have a 5 times greater chance of getting sick, let's make sure that you protect your income. You can also create a platform for your retirement. And learn how banks take advantage of you and create a platform for yourself. The shield is encompassing, I call it the 3-layer cake: chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, with the ingredients that protect you, the consumer, America, and no one does it in the country. They do a piece of it. The financial shield is, we do it, and we are promoting this across the country to make a difference in people's lives.
Absolutely. Riddle me this, John. In today's world, here in the year 2025, we all have walking computers at our disposal. We keep them in our pockets. We carry them everywhere we go, probably even in the bathrooms. Probably shouldn't, but we do. And so, and we've, in addition to Google, we now have things like Chat GPT and Cortina and things of that nature, to where all you have to do is just type in something and boom, you've got a whole encyclopedia that's right there in front of you in a matter of 0.1 seconds. In today's age of accessible financial information, why do you think so many Americans are still following outdated strategies that go all the way back to the 70s?
It's because it's working for the financial institutions you're giving the money to.
How do you mean?
They're making a ton of money. They're happy with what's going on. And as long as they're making their money and their agenda, again, let's cut to the chase. You give your money to the bank, right?
Well, yeah.
And what does the bank do with your money the day you give it to them?
Well, the uninformed person thinks that they just hold it, but we all know better that they take our money. We're basically loaning them money so they can take our money and loan it to other people. And then at the end of the day, they give us some breadcrumbs and saying, hey, thank you. Let us
Right.
know when you're ready to make another deposit so we can make more money.
But here's the thing. It's the truth versus the non-truth. See, in math, numbers, when you take 2 plus 2, it's 4. But if you don't understand math the way the banks and the insurance companies and the people that really know the bean counters do, it's because America doesn't understand the math. We know, even you said for the uninformed. Well, let's talk about the informed. The informed know that when you put money in the bank, that it is loaned out to somebody else. But they don't understand the math.
Let's go through the math here, John.
So in this graphic that's up here right now, let's just say, Rusty, you deposit money in my bank, and I've decided to give you $3 or 3%. So you know that at the end of the year, for your $100, you're going to make $3. And then the minute you put the $100 in the bank, I'm going to loan it out to, let's call this Jane, at 9%.
Okay.
So the question is, we know the banks make money. How much money do they make?
Well,
So in this
got it.
model here, the spread is 6%. So every human being says, hey, they're making 6%. And based on the math, that's correct. But how much profit do people really make? The bank's making off this transaction. This is where understanding math is important, the simplicity of the math. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the percentages into dollars. So what's 3% of $100? That's $3.
$3.
What's 9% of $100?
$9. Sir.
$9. So now we're going to rephrase the question. If you made a $3 investment and got a $9 return on a $3 investment, which means a $6 profit, what is your rate of return on $3? It is 200%.
There we go.
So the bank made 200%, not 6. The consumer thinks the bank made 6%, but they don't really understand the math. Now we're going to go back to the banks don't pay 3, the banks pay 1, and they charge 20 on the credit card. Again, on paper, it looks like a 19% spread. The difference between 1 and 20 is 19%. But when you do the real math, it's a 1900% profit. So the bank makes 1900% on your deposit, and you get 1% for them using your money. The only thing the banks are good for, and again, any bankers won't like what we're saying, is for depositing money, withdrawing money, and borrowing money. Other than that, you don't need them. So we can all teach America how to utilize the bank for what they give us and take what they don't teach us and create our own process as part of the financial shield. We do 3 things: protect your income, give you alternatives to retirement strategies, and teach you how to create, and I hate to use the word your own bank, because we're not trying to create your own bank. What we're trying to do is create a better bank strategy that's not a bank, but utilizing the financial
Create
products
your
and
own
means,
bank model.
a bank model to create money for you and your family. And whether you live too long, die too soon, or get sick, you have access to the money. Because I'll tell you what, you put $100,000 in Bank of America, you're not going to get $1 million of benefits for that $100,000.
That's exactly correct. Hey, John, let's talk for a minute about taxes. So why is paying tax now instead of later in retirement often a smarter move? Because we know that 95% of the people put their money in qualified accounts where it's tax deferred. So they think that, by not having to pay tax now, and that's taken off the gross income, but they pay the tax at a later time and their money grows during the accumulation phase deferred. Why is paying the tax now and putting it into a plan where you cut taxes out for the rest of your life? Why is that a much smarter move versus deferring it?
Math. Simply, it's math. And here's the thing: we follow the herd. That's the bottom line. When you go to a new company, you do what everybody else does. That's all you know. It's the lack of education. And again, it's being diversified. So, one of the things is people don't really understand. Think about this. You're sitting at lunch with me and you say, hey, John, I want to go to the bathroom. Can you watch my food? And there's an apple there. It's a nice green, shiny, or even a red shining apple. And then you go to the bathroom, and when you come back, your apple looks something like what's on the screen here. You're not going to be very happy because you said to watch your food, and I was the IRS, and I sure did watch your food. I helped myself to your food.
Right.
The lack of control. So it really is a basic philosophy. You either pay taxes on the seed today to never pay taxes ever again on the harvest, or you save the money on the seed today and let the government tell you how much they're going to take out of your harvest. So, for example, an apple orchard. Would you rather pay a nickel for every apple you pull 20 years from now? Or would you rather pay $2,000 up front and never have to pay a fee ever again? So it's either the seed or the harvest. The second thing is it's the direction of taxes. Most people in general say taxes are going to go up. Sometimes we have people say, well, it depends who the president is, or this or that. But I'm going to tell you what I said, math. What happens on a highway? They build these beautiful, beautiful highways with multiple lanes so the traffic will flow, right? Then how the heck do we get traffic? And the answer is simple. There's just too many cars.
Yep.
So there's too many people retiring, hitting age 100. There's too many folks needing Social Security. The national deficit is out of control. And we've had quotes from senators saying that you better take care of yourself because there's nothing we're going to be able to do. And so it's a combination of things. Eventually we got to pay the piper. But I think the biggest thing for those that are here, just go ahead and Google what the tax rates have been since 1913. And you will see a pattern of the taxes starting very low. They started to go up in World War I. And then the taxes went low. And then in the late 20s, at 1933, taxes hit 60%, as we'll show on the slide. I think you have the slide ready, right?
Yep.
This is a tax cycle. And if you notice, for the last 40 years, taxes have been pretty stable. And based on that big, beautiful bill that's passed, they're probably going to stay stable for about another 7-8 years.
Hey, John, real quick, how many people that you meet with, what percentage do you feel have actually ever seen a slide like this?
Less than 5%.
Right. I would agree with that. How many people do you think out of the 5%, what percentage of people are aware of the history of taxes that go back to 33 to 1983, where at one point in time, the highest tax bracket was 95%? How many people you think are aware of that?
Mm-hmm. Almost nobody.
Almost no one. It's almost like this chart's made up, but this is a piece of history.
Right.
And the reason why this is important is because history has a tendency to what?
Repeat itself.
Correct. And so, with the Doge findings, and not to get political here, but, a couple of months earlier, about a month after Doge started doing what he was doing, Congress had a hearing on it. And in the preface of that hearing, they basically stated, if we don't do something about the debt, history is going to repeat itself and we're going to enter a new tax cycle. This is where the tax cycle ended, right here.
That's right.
One of the things that Ronald Reagan was notorious for was ending the current tax cycle. So when we do ask people, do you feel like the taxes in 20, 30 years, whenever, based on their age, when they plan on retiring, around that age, you think taxes are going to be higher, stay the same, or be lower? To your point, people always think, oh, it's going to be higher. Why do you feel that way? Because they always go up. But most people haven't, they weren't paying taxes prior to 1983. Average age of most people we work with, say, 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s. And they weren't working back in 1975 or 1983. But it feels like taxes always go up because that's the rate of inflation.
Right.
But real taxation was back prior to 1983. And I tell you what, every time I look at this chart, it's just sickening. And it's extremely scary as well, knowing that it's happened before, which means it could potentially happen again.
Well, it's going to happen. What is it going to look like? It's going to look like that apple that you showed on the previous page. There. And again, this is the way right here is what everybody does. Today, if you look in your retirement account, the market's at an all-time high. You look at your retirement account and you go, man, you got $1 million, whatever is in there, it's great, but how much of it can you take out tomorrow? And can you control whether the market's going to go up or down?
Absolutely not.
So it doesn't really matter why you're accumulating, because as long as you have time to try to recover, you're great. But where it affects America is the day that they need the money. When they need to start having the money, you cannot recoup this stuff. And so that's why tax diversification is important. It's important to have accounts that are tax-free along with accounts that are taxable, because you can't control the accounts that are taxable. You have no control. People say, well, here's what they think. When I stop working, I'm going to be making less money and I'll be in a lower tax rate. Now think about that statement, Rusty. When I retire, I'll be making less money than what I struggled on to get to retirement.
Right.
So I'll get to pay less taxes and I'll have less money. That makes no sense whatsoever. That's what America's bought. That's the humble pie or the apple pie that America's bought. When I'm lower, I won't, save the taxes now. And when I'm older, and mathematically, the only way statistically that is not true is if you retire, you save money at one tax bracket and you retire at the same tax bracket, you break even in the models. But there's a lot of other factors, including health issues, where you might break even, but then you might get sick and you have no access to hundreds or even millions of dollars of money to help you during that time. So that's why the Shield recommends 3 different models, 3 different types of things within a platform. The platform is not one plan, it's multiple plans that do multiple things for each and everybody. And again, the Shield represent everything we do is tax-free. So if you're looking to invest money, ask the first question you want, is it going to be tax-free? Is it going to grow tax-free and come out tax-free? The second thing you should be saying, will it come out risk-free? Will you never lose money? And the third thing is, does it come with a combination of what we call living benefits to protect you in case you get sick?
Let's talk about
we use that as a template. The template is, I want to buy real estate. Is it tax-free? No. Is it risk-free? No. Does it come with $1 million of benefits in case you get sick? No. I'm not saying that real estate's a bad investment. What I'm saying is we want you to have the foundation first.
Right.
And then go ahead and buy everything you want to buy, commodities, Bitcoin, whatever. But if you don't, it doesn't matter what you invest in. If you get sick, you're going to spend your own money instead of someone else's.
Well, and let's piggyback off of that. I mean, if you're no longer generating income, how does that affect your retirement?
Yeah, you can't contribute to your retirement anymore.
Absolutely correct. So, you said that this strategy is tax-free, risk-free, and insured, and this is a 3-layer cake. So 2 of the 3 layers is based on what type of strategy, what product or plan are we putting money into? Let's just call it what it is.
Well, we prefer on a platform, we prefer the index universal life product. We prefer it, but we also realize that sometimes people want more guarantees. And so it can be a whole life plan and it can be an index universal life. It can be a combination of 2 plans.
Nice. Stop there, John. Life insurance? Wait, what? I thought we were talking about retirement, not death benefit.
Yeah.
Why do people get confused by that?
Because they don't view life insurance as an asset class.
There we go. So can you help me break down what an IUL really is and how it functions as a wealth building vehicle and not just insurance?
Well, one of the people, we have a 5-minute video that Ed Slott does, who's not an insurance agent, that we usually play for most of our prospects and clients, and even insurance agents. And it really breaks down what a properly structured cash value plan does. It gives you accessibility to money. It gives you tax-free accessibility to money, properly structured. You look at a Roth IRA and it has similar features on how that's designed. If you get sick along the way, you have access to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. If the market drops, you don't lose money. And so it's increasingly important And so in this chart you have here, it compares all the different types of plans.
Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, savings accounts, annuities, qualified plans, and the pros and cons of each one.
Right. And then you've got the right-hand column that's got a check mark in every box. Now, this is where the shield expands this, Rusty, because even if somebody does the plan on the right, they have some pitfalls in the future. I'll give you one example of a prospect or one of our agents who purchased the plan on the right. And within a month of purchasing the plan on the right, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Now, had she had a regular life insurance policy, she would have nothing that she could do. Because she didn't die. She got sick with breast cancer. They made an offer to her, and she took half the offer, and she was able to accelerate $125,000 of the plan. The problem was it also decreased the face amount by 50%. So she was left with a plan that was half of the death benefit, but she was able to get the money, and she was able to get the treatments for the cancer, and she's cancer-free, and it did its job. The problem was, moving forward, all she has left is half of the benefit she originally had. Had she done the shield, she'd have had multiple platforms. She wouldn't have had to change her retirement plan. She wouldn't have to change her banking plan. She could have utilized the first plan that we would have given to her, got the benefits, and still have enough living benefits for $3 million worth of benefits moving forward. She had the money. She just bought one plan. So as good as the plan is on the right, what's suffering is there's agents that are offering that, and that's great, but they don't do the shield. It doesn't do what you're going to need for the next 55 years if you're 45 years old. So just like Uber threatened what? The taxi industry, the financial shield is going against the grain and is disrupting the normal financial practice of everybody out there, because everybody's still doing it the same way. We still need the financial advisors. We still need the stockbrokers. We need all those people to do what they do in their job. But what we need to make sure is we protect the greatest asset, financial asset that people own first.
This is a visual aid that I came up with, John. What are your thoughts on this? Where, you've got this plan right here, the banking plan, and here you've got the retirement. And of course, the banking with the shield is insured with living benefits. The retirement is insured with living benefits. To the point that you just made, you should have multiple layers of protection. So it's like playing a video game. And if you swallow a power pill and you have like 3 or 4 extra shields, which means you can get hit once, twice, or thrice, and you're still
alive.
You're still alive. So in this case, here's a critical or chronic illness, and that tank shoots a bullet and it hits you. Well, that first shield right there protects your greatest financial asset, so it doesn't disrupt your retirement, your banking.
It's a perfect and analyzation, a great way of explaining it, Rusty. No, that's what the financial shield is. You go back to that diagram, that is the financial shield. It's not product based. It's not based on all these products. Yes, you have to have products, but it's based on a concept. And then anything else you put into there, the commodities, the stocks, the bonds, what happens to your stock portfolio if you lose money? It goes down.
Right.
What if it took you 10 years to build it up, and then in one day you lose 50% of your money? You gotta wait 5-7 years to probably rebuild it. But in our plan, guess what? Nothing happens. You don't lose a dime. So the key thing is,
you've heard of a guy named Ed Sanders, haven't you?
I've heard, yes, gentlemen, Ed Sanders.
Obviously, that's a joke. And when I had Ed on, on my podcast, he shared the story about how he personally lost $800,000 in 2 days, and that's his why. That's what motivates him, and he never has to hear those type of conversations being shared, nor does he ever have to see any of his senior clients working a Safeway, as
Right.
he explained it.
And here's an urgent message I want to everyone listening, whether they're agents or professionals or clients or prospects. The IUL, which is a really great product, we want to stress this. A lot of the gurus out there that are promoting the product, it's IUL or nothing. IUL and nothing else. And that is very, very, very bad planning. Again, what they know about the IUL, they're experts, and it's a great product. But I like to follow a guy named David McKnight. And I really would want people to subscribe to his podcast, because what David does is he talks about multiple streams or multiple buckets of tax-free income. The IUL is not the only way to do it. It's one of the best ways, but there's other ways of creating tax-free strategies using the financial products that are out there. And anyone who says it's this or nothing, then I get worried. You have to take a holistic approach to this. We need the stocks, we need the market, we need everything that is out there. It's just protecting. And I love that one slide again that you had with the tank. That's what the shield is all about. 3 layers.
So, like IRAs and 401ks, they do have contribution limits. Are there any contribution limits to structuring IULs?
No, other than financial underwriting criteria. So you can't just pick any number, but you can put a lot of money in these things.
Indeed.
And there's a lot of creditor protection, and depending on what state you're in, it's kind of bulletproof in some of the states where they can't access your money. Now, I will say that with a caveat: if you're committing felonies, they can get a hold of anything.
What kind of other types of flexibility do IULs offer compared to qualified plans?
Well, they're tax-free. They're risk-free.
Penalty free?
Mm.
Penalty free?
Not really penalty free. They've got, if you put $50,000 in and you take it out a week later, you're going to get a very big penalty.
We're not talking about that kind of a penalty. We're talking about
But no
having
penalties.
access.
No penalties for you have access to money immediately. You can take some money out.
There we go.
Some companies make you wait 1 year, but you have accessibility to cash anytime. You don't have the pre-59.5 penalties. You don't have the watchdog of, if you get sued, they're not going to be able to get the cash that you have inside of the policy. In most cases, they won't be able to get a penny. So it just all depends. It all depends. But if you line them up side by side, you already go ahead and bring that chart back up.
Alrighty.
You got a check mark in every box. The consumer can decide.
There we go.
So you can. What's the advantages? Why don't you? We don't have time to do it right now. We'll have less than 10 minutes, but if you want to run through the exercise, you can actually do it.
Speaking of less than 10 minutes, I've got 3 of the topics that I want to cover, and probably enough time to just cover one. So let's shift gears over to banks and institution use. So what you were saying earlier, which is why I'm like, don't say too much, because I didn't want you to steal my thunder, John. But now we can open Pandora's box. I heard that big banks like Chase and Wells Fargo, they do use this strategy too. Some guy named John Marques taught me about this, and Bowling and Co. So how does that make sense if it's life insurance? How do banks use this, a life insurance strategy? I mean, can you explain that part?
Well, first of all, life insurance has guarantees. So what it's all about the banks, it's about what assets they put under management. And life insurance is considered a tier 1 investment, which is one of the most stable investments you can put your money into.
Or a tier 1 asset, right? Tier 1
Yep,
investment.
tier 1 asset. Okay. The other thing is life insurance, the cash value in a life insurance policy, how does the cash value go based on the interest earned inside these policies? The interest is earned and there are no taxes on the growth of this. So let's just say you have $1 billion, or let's call it $1 million, and you make a healthy 7% return on that million. That's $70,000 of interest, which then goes what? Into the policy. It ups the value of the bank's assets on the books, and they use that leverage of the assets to go do what? To get more money.
Right.
And so would you want every asset inside the policy creating tax-free growth, or would you rather be responsible for the taxes of the growth on that 70,000?
Some guy named Justin Tarragano, which I think you know that name, he made a comment on here. Wells Fargo just had to get $1 billion loan to keep them afloat. Wonder where that $1 billion loan came from.
Well, because they have leverage.
That's right. He also stated rich people don't care about tax on growth because they use loans to create tax-free income.
Right. And so understanding, and that's why people should, before they jump into the fire with life insurance, they should do some research on BOLI, and they should research on COLI and
just
tier 1
understand the acronym
investments and leveraging. And so if Bank of America and Chase and Wells Fargo have $200 billion in assets in life insurance, are they going to be running around the country telling their clients that this is a good place to put their money?
Absolutely not, because it's a conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. So the key to understand this is that if they do it, why can't you do it?
What do they know that they don't want you to know?
You know, that's right.
Because if you know, then you won't be doing business with them anymore.
So imagine you're a stockbroker, and again, nothing against financial advisors. See, there's financial advisors they don't do everything. Now, certified financial planners have the ability to do everything, but financial advisors don't do everything. They don't do life insurance. They don't do annuities. Some of them don't. They just simply do what they do, which is invest in stocks and bonds and mutual funds and build portfolios. And here's the trick. I was in the financial advisory point until 2010 or 12, and I would just give the company the money. I didn't pick what stocks or bonds or what models. They created asset allocated models. So I wasn't the one that was picking the 60 stocks or the 14 mutual funds or whatever, the hundreds of instruments inside of a mutual fund. So there's only less than 5% of everyone that's in the market that's even gotten close to being right. So again, nothing against the advisors, but they come in saying you're an advisor, an investment advisor, they all do different things. Some of them do VUL, variable universal life, for their insurance planning, which there's a book called The Retirement Miracle that kind of breaks down what all the different products do. And the VUL doesn't save them from losing money. So if you've got a securities license, I see a lot of people with VUL contracts, variable universal life contracts. So they may be doing it. Some people can't sell certain annuities. Some people can't be all over the place. And this is the premise. I am writing a book, Rusty. And guess what the name of the book's called?
The Financial Shield.
The Financial Shield.
There we go.
That's right. And the reason I'm writing the book is none of these books here, none of these people are wrong. None of them are wrong. You can see You've got the new rules of retirement, the retirement miracle, the power of zero, tax-free retirement, the laser fund, get me to zero, wealth beyond Wall Street, banking, bank on yourself, confessions of a CPA. They all got it right, but no one put the shield together.
Yep.
No one
As you
put
say,
that
they're
little
all great.
diagram you did is so awesome because you got 3 force fields between the tank and the runner. And each of these promote those 3 force fields. Each of those books promotes the force fields in one or another capacity, but none of them do it the way we do it.
We're running out of time here, John. There's one question I do want to throw in, and let's go back to living benefits for just a quick minute here. So, when it comes to living benefits, and we talk about what if that happened to you? What if you couldn't work for the next 2 years? And people say, "Oh, I got $1 million in my this or that, and I have short or long term disability." Let me ask you this: how does living benefits differ from short or long term disability coverage? What do you know about that?
Well, first of all, when they send you the money, if you want to, I tell this all the time in the seminars that I do. If you want to take the money and rent a balloon and fly around the world in 360 days, you can use the money for anything. When you talk about specific benefits, it's usually tied to the event and how serious the event was. And they only give you like medical reimbursements. So is it a true plan where they give you income based on it, and how long will they do it? Most people can't afford that type of insurance. So they need life insurance and they need disability. And if they can afford disability, great. But how many people really have great disability plans? Very few.
Right.
And because if they did, I wouldn't see all these GoFundMe pages.
And I'm going to say this is the amount of people that know how those disability plans actually work.
Yeah, and they're too expensive. And again, for those that got lots of money, they're going to buy lots of different stuff, and it might be okay. Guaranteed pensions, you'll still keep in the money. But here's the key. This is what I'm trying to get through everybody's head. If you understand this, this is the most important thing. Do you want to spend your money to get better or someone else's money to get better?
And 100% of the time you hear the response, somebody else.
Rather spend someone else.
No matter what their net worth is, nobody wants to use their money.
So the key to causing people, I got $1 million in the bank if I get sick. Great. So then after you spend $600,000 and you're better, that's great. You just lost the 600,000, where you can keep the $1 million and I'll give you the $600,000 from a rider on the policy.
Hey,
so
John,
would you rather get $600,000 and not upend your plan, or would you rather have to use your own money for everything you need to do? And you may not even have enough to save your life.
John, I don't know if you came across this story. I posted about it on Facebook earlier this week because it was something that I just recently found out about. Without divulging too much information on who this party is, because I'm not sure that they want this information broadcast to the entire world. But a close personal friend of mine, their family is a gentleman who had cancer a couple of years ago, bladder cancer, in his mid-30s. What I didn't know, because I knew the whole story from like a month after he was diagnosed with it, and the journey he went on for the next 2 years. As again, they're close personal friends of ours. What I didn't know is what I learned earlier this week. As I'm working with this family right now, I discovered on Monday that about 2 or 3 months before he was officially diagnosed with cancer, he had taken out a $750,000 term life insurance policy. Didn't know that, but it was the wrong kind.
Right.
And had he had the right kind, he would have had access to almost $700,000 tax-free income. And I tell you, when I learned about that and I shared that with him, I think, between him and his wife and myself, all our stomachs kind of churned.
Right.
So the point I made on this post is that he did his part in protecting him and his family. He went out, he got a policy trying to secure the financial future in the event of something tragic happening. The problem is he dealt with the wrong agent and he got the wrong policy.
Well, and here's the other thing. The tank shot him and he had no shields.
None. Yep.
And I have a close friend of mine who's an insurance agent. Wife had cancer, and he kept setting up GoFundMe's and donations, and it just kept going on for 5 years, and she died. And I said, would $600,000 or $700,000 changed everything? Absolutely. There's a great chance she'd be here. It shouldn't. And this is the thing. It's not about life insurance. It's not about selling life insurance. It's about living benefits. You either got them or you don't, and the majority of people in the country don't. And we need to go out and let people know about not about living benefits, but the entire shield, and look like that runner, have that triple layer force field. When that tank shoots, you got a chance of surviving.
The reason why it's a runner is because my client that I designed that chart for, he's a runner.
Yeah, no, I think I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And one more thing about this person is that I had asked them the question. I said, let me ask you a question. If you had received a check for almost $700,000 tax-free, I asked them, I said, would that have played any kind of a positive effect through that whole ordeal, that nightmare that you guys went through? And both him and his wife, they both responded simultaneously, oh my God.
Right.
Oh my God, we could have done this. We could have done that. We wouldn't have worried about this. We wouldn't have done that.
Absolutely.
The possibilities were endless. And I think just the financial and mental relief that families will get out of having that layer of protection, which are 5 times more likely of having. And the average age of a critical illness is 43. And I am a guy who's worked in the final expense market for 2 decades. I've heard all these stories. It happens to people in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. The reality is 3 out of 4 times, 75% of the time, that if and when it happens, you're going to live. You ain't going to die. But then what happens? So, all right. So as we put a bow on today's show, John, I always ask the same final question. If you could stand on top of the world with the largest megaphone in the world, and you could shout the most important message that you feel everybody needs to hear and know about, what would that message be?
They need to learn that the greatest financial asset we possess as humans here is our income. And we spend more on car insurance than protecting the greatest asset. If it's really the greatest asset and you don't know it, then you need to start taking care of it. Learn about the shield. Learn about the triple layer force field to protect you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And, most people define an asset as something that has value. But if you talk to Robert Kiyosaki, his definition of an asset is something that generates income.
That's right.
So people are going out there and insuring depreciating assets that do not generate income instead of insuring themselves that does have the ability to generate income. John,
thank you. I gotta go. I got another client that I'm going to help.
As I put a
teach
bone,
him about the shield. The education is important. So thank you, Rusty. Glad to be here. Hope to do it again soon.
As
have
always,
a great
weekend. So
weekend.
much to think about when it comes to protecting what matters the most. Guys, if you're listening to this and something finally clicked, if you're tired of market volatility, tax surprises, or you feel like you're just not in control of your money, it might be time to take a closer look at the Financial Shield. You can reach out to John Marques or connect with us through the links that's going to be shown in the notes when we later post this podcast. Bottom line, don't wait for retirement to realize your strategy was broken. Build something better today. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review, share it with a friend, and subscribe so that way you don't miss on what's coming next on the next Financial Happy Hour podcast. Cheers to the future, and we'll see you next again. John, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care.